Hello, I am Kimmo Tiilikainen, Director General of Geological Survey of Finland, GTK, and today I have an honor to interview Tumi Makgabo, broadcaster and founder of Africa Worldwide. So Tumi, you have been leading moderator in Future Minerals Forum for several years. Like we did also this year, we met there. So I I think that the importance of critical raw material inside of the policies in African countries is increasing. Is it so? And how do you describe the situation referred to materials? What's going on in Africa?
Well, I'm sure you're very familiar and very close to this, but for those who perhaps for some reason aren't aware, effectively you've got this huge race that is taking place on the African continent, race for minerals. We all know that in order for us to meet some of the green goals that the world has, we need this exponential increase in the amount of raw materials that are used in creating some of these more sustainable, environmentally friendly solutions, be they solar, be they electric vehicles, etc. And a lot of those minerals, those critical minerals, are found in developing countries, and many of those criticals are found on African soil in African countries. So you've got this drive by many countries to have some kind of a stake in Africa in terms of securing supply chains. As you're aware, supply chain security is a huge issue in the mining sector. That is the one side. But on the other side of that, you have this push and this pressure that exists on African governments to make sure that they have policies, one, that are protecting their own countries and their own resources, and two, to ensure that they're able to exploit those resources in a way that is going to be beneficial for their economies. So there is that pressure that is being put on African countries. And I think if you look historically, on the African continent, we haven't always done really well in terms of, one, just managing how these resources are extracted, just managing the responsibility that is placed on the companies that do the extracting, but also further down the line, ensuring that there is better beneficiation, that we are working towards producing some of the product that we ourselves need and that the rest of the world needs. So there are conversations that I think are happening on multiple levels when it comes to the African continent. And I think it's still quite early for us to know exactly how well we are going to do in managing this sort of rush for resources on the continent. The onus is certainly going to be on us, because obviously for those who want to come in, they want to get deals that are going to be as good for them as possible. African governments just have to make sure that in turn those deals are good for them too.
So my organization, Geological Survey of Finland, GTK, we have been working a very long time in several African countries, and we are present there all the time, trying to improve the knowledge of geological resources, geodata system, a better understanding of the resources, but also supporting sustainable use of resources and building the value chain so that the benefit of the resources will be local. And I pretty much think that in the European Union Critical Raw Material Act that is launched just last year, one essential part of that is building partnerships. And I think that in EU, many countries and decision makers has waken up that from European perspective, we have to diversify the sources of critical raw materials and build the value chain together with the countries that we are partnering. So how do you see, what's your message to the Europeans? How could we make the partnership with African or Asian countries really work?
I think one of the things would be to, one, be on the ground. I think if we use the Future Minerals Forum as an example, they weren't very well represented at the forum. I think that would be a good start, that you actually are in the room. But if we also look historically, one of the challenges that I think African countries and perhaps many in the developing world, or the global south, if you will, have often complained about is that rules are made, policies are taken, positions are taken that are made without them in the room. So I'm not suggesting that this is necessarily what has happened in this instance, but I think that being mindful of both sides of that communication is important. So yes, of course, the European Union and the European community wants to make sure that its interests are protected. It wants to make sure that it's looking across the value chain. But what's a very important thing is to get the boots on the ground and to have those very direct conversations that are face to face, that are, hand to hand, around what those communities want, what those communities need, and even what the states in terms of economic growth is looking to achieve, and looking at how you can better support those initiatives. And I think the example that you've given about making sure that you are on the ground, having the conversations in some of these African countries to say, how can we help? Because it's beneficial both to us and to you that we do this well, is an absolutely necessary element. And I hope that those European countries who really want to make a difference and do something differently start there, because I think when you ask the question, I think the answers will be forthcoming, because people will be able to share exactly what they want to get out of the deal. And I think because of geopolitics, there are a lot of shifting priorities now, which makes it even more important for those relationships to not only be amicable, but to also ensure that those relationships are sustained in the long term and mutually beneficial.
Thank you so much, Tumi. This has been a very valuable opportunity for me to interview you, and I believe that your clear advice to Europe, hopefully that's very widely heard, because like you said, doing things together, listening to each other, that's the key in all human communication, human partnership building, and the same goes between companies, same goes between countries. Thank you so much for your wise advice to Europeans. Tumi Makgabo.